So I just finished playing No Kuni Wrath of the White Witch remastered. I mean, I beat it. There's post content to do. I will probably do a lot of it, but the platinum, Jesus Christ, it's not easy. It might be one of those things where it's like I progressively get closer to it over the years. Maybe I'm not too much of a platinum hunter. I like getting it when it's not too far out of the way, but this one is definitely out of the way. Like you're not going to just incidentally get this platinum. You're gonna have to do very specific things for a lot of numerous things in order to get the platinum. And I don't know if the post game content is going to carry me through all of that. That being said, I love this game. I highly recommend this game. I mean, listen, I have gone on a bit of a tirade in response to the whole sentiment that people have nowadays about how games aren't like trying out for variety, or they all feel the same, and all of these falsehoods that are being promoted in the community because of grifters and liars and people that are just for some reason pessimistic about gaming. Listen, go play Nino Kuni. It's everything that you want. It is a charming game that has its own identity. It's a classic JRPG. It's brilliant. And it's dripping with heart. Like that, this game has heart. Incidentally, the story is all about hearts. But listen, this game is like wow. I could come back to this 5 years from now, maybe even 10 years from now if it's had the remake. um Definitely if it's had the remake. um it looks beautiful. It has its own art style. The story is great, and it's one of those stories that you're not meant to critique. It's one of those stories that you're meant to just experience, have a fun time with, and then just move on. You just move forward. Like you remember it, sure, but move forward. You're not meant to look back and be like, in chapter five they could have done. Nah, it's not that. It's not like that. Um, it's suitable for children, definitely. So if you're like, hey, I need a game for the little one. It's not co-op, unfortunately, but at least it is a child-friendly story, and it just takes you back to the good old time where like hope won, good one. Just like a solid win for the good guys, and that's what it is. Um, I really, really want to impress on you that this is a wonderful game. Like this is just man, like it's a game that you need to play. Let's just put it this way. Like it's one of those things that should just come across your controller at some point in your life, and should really spend a lot of time with you there. It is wonderful to play on the PlayStation Portal. So I've said this before, but on my PlayStation I have a collection of games that I think work really well for the Portal, and this is definitely one of them. It somehow feels more right to me on the Portal than it does even on the big screen. Like it's just right. There's just something about it that feels like a classic handheld game, So if you guys have a Switch, it's available there. I am pretty sure. Go ahead and play it over there as well. If that's the way you choose to partake in it. If you have a PlayStation 4 or 5, also a great place to play it. Um, but yeah, it is good, man. It is good. The only thing that kind of gets in the way for me are some of the technical limitations, just like with Starfield, which has no excuse because it was created recently. But this game is, I think, a 2013 game. It's a PS3 generation game that was remastered for the PS4. So back in the PS3 generation, of course, when you open every door, there's a loading screen, and that I think on the PlayStation 5, the loading screens are a few seconds, but when you have something like I do, which is a nearly 70-hour playthrough, man, those few seconds add up. Definitely, I would say they add up to quite a few hours actually, because quite a lot of things require just this 3 to 5 second loading screen, 3 to 5 seconds loading screen. So that is pretty much the on, and you do it constantly. You're doing constantly during the game, because it's pretty much anything that you do that takes you out of the physical map that you're currently in, and there's just like hundreds of tiny little maps that need to be loaded in constantly. That's the only part where it shows its age. And if there was a remake on the PlayStation 5 generation, that would be the one thing that I want them to just either get rid of to make the entire world seamless, or to minimize those loading screens to basically half a second, because it's not loading any geometry that really requires all of that. So that's the only kind of the part where you feel like it is dated. Um, but aside from that, man, it's a great thing. It is a great thing. If you want to critique this game, you definitely can. But I think its charm overrides whatever flaws it has, you know. And you know what? This is also another great example of why remakes and remasters are so powerful. I'm having this experience in 2024. 11 years, I believe, since the original was released. You know what? Let me just quickly fact check that. So, Nino Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, original release date. Because I think it was released first in Japan and then it came like 2 years later. Okay, so it was released in Japan in 2011 and then in Western regions in 2013. So I guess it's a 2011 game if we look at it. So now I'm having this. Then it was remastered in 2017. Okay, so it released in 2011, remastered in 2017, and I'm playing 2024, which is 13 years after the original game was released. You think about that, and I want you to realize I would have never played this game if it was just the original PS3 version, especially because I don't have a PS3 currently in circulation at my home. So I wouldn't even have been able to on a technical level. But even if I were to have played it on PC or on through some other means, like 2011, that's too far back. The 2013 limitations would have made those loading screens even more, just longer, and the graphics even worse. Even though the art style can definitely carry itself at a lower resolution, that's why it works so well on the portal versus the big screen. It still would have had those moments where you feel like, oh yeah, this is like 2 or 3 generations behind. And me personally, I never would have played it. Like, yes, to all of you retro gamers, you're like, hey, listen, man, I can play games back in like the 1970s. Hey, listen, power to you. Power to you. I will never denigrate you for what you do, but I do not enjoy gaming that way. For me, as soon as the game is over 10 years old, man, we start having problems. Like, I still haven't played GTA 5, and every time that I consider playing it, I'm like, man, is this game just too old for me? Am I just like, I have started it, and every time I start it, I'm like, wow, this is old. Like, I'm just like, I think I missed this bird. I think this bird left and it just left me behind. Like, I don't know if I can, bring myself backwards in order to go on that ride with GTA 5. So listen, remasters and remakes are exactly for this. For people who come late to it. It's not just people who didn't have the opportunity because they weren't born or they weren't old enough to play games on their own yet or whatever, or they simply missed out. Sometimes it's just it. I just simply missed out on No Kuni. Like, what am I meant to do? Am I meant to be ashamed about it that I didn't play it in 2011? I wasn't looking out for it. I didn't even know it existed. Or in 2013 when it was released in the West, again, didn't look out for it. I kind of saw it pop up on my radar when the remastered version was announced, but it was again like, oh, okay, cool, looks like a game for children, and I'll play it eventually, maybe, yeah. But then eventually I was like, hey, you know what? Let's give it a go. And when I gave it a go, I'm so glad that I have at least a 2017 version to go back to. It would have been even better if by now I had like a 2022 remade version to go back to. That just makes everything even more seamless, gives great quality of life and polishes, tidies up the buttons here and there. And that would have been fantastic. But again, you take a look at your favorite games now that are getting remastered and remade, and you've played it and you've enjoyed them and you've done everything that there is to do, or at least everything that you want to do in that game, and you think to yourself, why does this remake or remaster exist? Like the Horizon Dawn Zero Dawn one, which by the way is freaking brilliant. I've given it a bit of a run through, but I was playing No Kuni and I didn't want to stop because it's one of those games that if you stop, you kind of lose track of what you're doing. It's not so much that it is mechanically complex, but it's that you have a long list of objectives that you try to do as you play the game, and losing track of that just wasn't worth it for me. So you take a look at Horizon Zero Dawn, and that is, for someone, Horizon Zero Dawn remastered is going to be their Ni no Kuni remastered. Maybe they could have played it when it first came out. Maybe they could have played it all these years. But finally, this is the end point, and they're going to be so happy with this version of the game that they will get to play for the first time, that they will get to fall in love with for the first time. I mean, listen to the way that I love Ni no Kuni. I don't love it like a person that loved it 13 years ago and is simply reminiscing about it. I love it like a person that is brand new to it and just finished it and is blown away by it. And that's exactly why remasters and remakes are there. They're not always just for you, the veteran of the IP or of the particular title. Sometimes they're just for people that are brand new to it for whatever reason. I mean, I think about a game like Ni no Kuni and I think to myself like, wow, when I have a girlfriend here and she's like, okay, let's play a game. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, which game am I going to put up in front of her so that she understands not just the game itself, but what the gaming medium can do? She will be an adult over 25. She's never played games before, not in, at least not these types of console games, and not in this way. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, you have things like Astro's Playroom and Astrobot. Great. You have things like Cyborg Big Adventure, which brings in that co-op element. Great. You have heavy stories like The Last of Us and, long stories like Horizon Zero Dawn. But then what if you want a charming game? Yes, Astrobot and everything is charming, but obviously that's all around the PlayStation history and legacy and building a PlayStation and be a part of the PlayStation. She doesn't have any of that nostalgia. She doesn't know these characters. So it's like, it might not land for her. What about just a game that is just a good, it's almost like a bedtime story, almost like a fairy tale, but you get to play it. That's what I think it's like. It's like a storybook. And now this is just another option. And if ever, right, if ever I put it in front of her and I'm like, hey, let's play this game, whether I control it or you control it or you do the exploration and I do the combat, whatever kind of like, work logistics we have to run so that she doesn't have to get used to all of the buttons for the PlayStation controller at once. But whenever I place this game in front of her, I'm so glad that she has a good, up-to-date version that isn't going to require her to kind of like downgrade her idea of what gaming can do visually. And that's exactly going to be the thing. Like, you may need to one day introduce a partner or a child or a friend or just someone else who hasn't had the chance to experience the title. And with remasters and remakes, you get to give them the best version that the developers have to offer so far. And I just think that's so powerful. And I hate the conversation about remasters and remakes as some kind of like cash grab or some kind of nefarious things that all of these companies are doing to somehow get more money out of you. They don't get more money out of you. The Last of Us Part 1 got a remake. I didn't buy it. I played The Last of Us on PS3 and PS4, and I played it like 4 times over. I was good. I was a veteran to the IP and to that title. I didn't need to play it again. Now though, it's on PlayStation Plus, so it's like, oh, if I want to introduce my girlfriend, if I want to introduce a friend, if I want to introduce a parent, to The Last of Us, I'm going to download the one on PlayStation Plus. And I'm going to say like, yeah, there is the latest, most up-to-date version. Come and sit through a chapter with me and see where this story is going. Come and be interested. Come and partake with this thing. I will never go back to the PS4 version or let alone the PS3. So again, think about people that might be in a different position from you, or think about yourself when you've been late to the party on a particular title or a particular IP, and how glad you were that you didn't have to slide backwards 10 or 20 years in terms of graphics or technical performance in order to enjoy it. So that's it. Go play Ni no Kuni Remastered. It was a powerful experience for me. I think it will be a powerful experience for you if you haven't played it yet. If you have played it, then tell me how excited you are about it. And I have Ni no Kuni 2 already. Those are games that I actually bought. I bought both of those games. So what I'm going to try to do now is I'm going to try to finish up as much of Ni no Kuni 1 as I can, because I think from the trailers and everything that I see about Ni no Kuni 2, it's completely different combat system. So I think that would just kind of like be like, okay, let's kind of like rethink our, the whole combat system, the whole paradigm of what's going on over here. So I don't think I want to do them concurrently, because then I'll be bouncing from one system to another, and that would be a little bit too jarring for my liking. So I think I'm going to stay on Ni no Kuni for maybe another, I don't know, 10 or 20 gameplay hours. Don't hold me to that. But I'm going to try to clean up a few things. There's a few kind of like things I just want to be like, you know what, I enjoy being in this world. Let me just spend some extra time in it. Then I think I might take a break from Ni no Kuni, because it is a big RPG. Maybe go and faff around with something else, and then play Ni no Kuni 2. So that is definitely it. Which actually brings me very smoothly to my new kind of philosophy. So, as you guys know, at the beginning of this year, I decided that I was going to mostly focus on my backlog, right? Ni no Kuni being a prime example of an item that's just been in my backlog for years. Like, I didn't buy it this year. I've had it for many, many years. But it was just kind of sitting there and, not really doing anything. But I just kept hearing about it. So I was like, yeah, I'm interested. I want to play. So this year was finally the year where I was like, okay, let's tackle this backlog. And I'm very proud of what I've been able to do in terms of like reducing the amount of kind of like I guess psychological weight that all of these titles had on me. Some of these titles I didn't play for longer than 4 hours. I just went in there, I tried it, I was like, nah, I'm not really feeling this. And I'm way past the point where I'm gonna force myself to play a game, even if I don't feel it from the beginning. So I was just like, you know what, that's it. Even with Ni no Kuni, I had about 2 or 3 false starts until I was like, you know what, let me really go into it. Let me really give it its moment. And then that's when, finally it hooked me. But it didn't take like 7 hours. It only took like 45 minutes. Basically, it just took me committing to playing the title, because I think the very first time that I started Ni no Kuni, I just basically saw that the introduction, kind of a montage, and I was like, get back to this later. So I guess I was just in a different mood. Point is, this year has been a backlog year. And I'm very glad that it has been a backlog year, because incidentally, even though I didn't take it in anticipation of the PlayStation 5 Pro, now it means that I have my own personal lineup for the eventual moment where I get the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, I didn't play Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, I didn't play Stellar Blade, I didn't play, a lot of these games that are going to come. If I don't get the PlayStation 5 Pro by the time that Ghost of Yotei come, I think I'll have it by then, but hey, you never know how life goes. But I'm not going to play that on the base PlayStation 5. So now every kind of exciting PlayStation 5 title that has come out in the last few years or is coming up next year, I'm just going to play that on the Pro. Even Baldur's Gate 3. I've had Baldur's Gate 3 for quite a while, but this is where it kind of intersects with the new kind of decision that I've taken. And my new goal is to finish all the PlayStation 4 titles in my backlog. My idea is this: by the time the PlayStation 6 comes out, whether that's in 2027, 8 or 30, whatever, I want to have no PlayStation 4 items in my backlog. This doesn't mean that I'm going to move away from PlayStation 4 games entirely, like if it's a PlayStation 4 games I don't play it, because there's many games that I love that came on PlayStation 4 platform. Take a look at Ni no Kuni. Take a look at oh Jesus, I can't even think of another one. But so many games that have come out for the PlayStation 4, like Flower. I love Flower. I always go back to that. Journey, love those kind of games. I'm going to keep playing them, but those games are not part of my backlog. Those are games that I have played, I have beaten in many cases. I enjoy playing them, so that's why I will keep playing them, even on the PlayStation 6, maybe even the PlayStation 7, if I decide that somehow I'm more tolerant of old games than I currently am. But the point is this: in my actual backlog, games that I want to play but I haven't gotten to yet, I'm going to try to clear the PlayStation 4 out of there. I don't want to be playing PlayStation 4 games in my backlog that are still like on my PlayStation 6. Like, it's just, I'll just be like, nah, that's just too much. At a certain point you just have to be like, nah, I'm not gonna do this, So basically things like if it has had a remake, or a remaster for the PlayStation 5, that's fine. Like that can still kind of be played. It can be put in the backlog even for the PlayStation 6. But purely PlayStation 4 games, no upgrade, no remake, sometimes not even a patch. Those I'm going to try to clear them out. So I have quite a few. I wish I actually had my portal with me so I could go through my list and kind of rattle off a few right now. But just for memory, let's see. So the Ni no Kuni, Ni no Kuni 2, I have a whole bunch of like games. Usually these are more like experimental and indie games. Games that are not necessarily big AAA things, but they just seem interesting. So I'm going to try to kind of get just clear out the PlayStation 4 backlog, and that's basically my goal from now until I get the PlayStation 5 Pro. Because, like I say, for most PlayStation 5 games, I'm just going to wait until the Pro, I've gotten the Pro. So like again, the Ghost, the Wolverine coming out. Death Stranding 2, definitely not going to play that on the base PlayStation 5. I'm going to play that on the Pro, So that's going to be like, that's it. So between now and then, I have some PlayStation 5 games that I want to play. But then most of them, I'm going to try to do the PlayStation 4 backlog and just clear it out. Hopefully, I can clear it out in a year or two. I was looking at kind of like my pace this year, and I think I've got about 12, maybe 13, maybe 15 games that will be played and and beaten, or at least had a good amount of time where I no longer consider them part of my backlog. So basically, for me to not consider a game part of my backlog, it has to be a game that I enjoy, right? And it has to have lasted more than 4 hours. Like that's basically it. Then it's no longer part of the backlog. It's kind of like in circulation, so to speak, until I beat it, and in which case, that one is completed. But yeah, so that's basically kind of how I think about it. So if I start the game and I'm just like, listen, I'm not feeling this, I'm just gonna clear out the backlog. I'm not gonna like I give it a few chances, but if it's just not ticking for me, like I remember when I used to force myself to play games just because it was recommended or it was big or it was popular, and then I'm just like, bro, I don't enjoy this. Like for example, Prey. Prey, I hated Prey. I hated, oh my god, I hated that game. But my friends recommended it to me, and because of that, I gave it so much time. I was just like, bro, I hate every minute of this. But I'm not going to do that anymore. So, and again, I'm not even saying that Prey is a bad game, even though it is, but I'm not saying that, okay? I'm not, that's not the point. That's a separate thing. What I'm saying is this. I, um, I'm just no longer going to give it. If a game isn't clicking for me, it's not clicking for me. I'm not going to try to change my mentality around it. I'm not going to try to force myself. I'm just gonna move forward and just get it out of my backlog. Then I have to give it at least 4 hours. Let's say I'm enjoying the game. In order to be out of my backlog and be in circulation, I'm gonna try to give it at least 4 hours. Give the game a real chance to hook you. Give a game a real chance to at least show you where it's going to see if you're interested. So yeah. I think that will give me on pace. If this year is to be taken into account, that's about maximum of 15 games per year. At the moment, my backlog currently says 35 games, and that is including some PlayStation 5 titles or some PlayStation 5 upgraded titles, whatever. So I reckon it may take like a year, maybe two, to clear the backlog. Obviously, by then I should have a PlayStation 5 Pro, so that might kind of get into the mix. That's why I'm thinking about 2 years. But yeah, that's my new goal. My new goal is that I'm gonna clear my backlog of PlayStation 4 games, try to move them out of the way. And then the good thing about that is that it also kind of like slows down the pace at which I need to buy PlayStation 5 games at launch. Because we've talked about this before, this gaming hobby that we have now in this era that we are in, you get rewarded for patience. Like you simply get a better product. Like you think about a person that didn't play Stellar Blade but got the PlayStation 5 Pro now. Now you're getting a better version of the game. Sure, you had to make an additional hardware purchase, but I guess you can say the hardware purchase is a separate calculation. The game is the game, and this is a better product than what you got at launch before. Or you just think about the amount of patches and quality of life things, the fact that Stellar Blade has a photo mode now that you'll be able to take advantage of. All of these things, it's like it really behooves you. If you want to wait, there's no penalty for waiting. The only thing is that some people might somehow try to spoil the game for you or invalidate you as a gamer, but who cares about the opinion, and who cares about the pathetic attempts at making your hobby less enjoyable? At the end of the day, it's your decision, and you suffer no penalty for waiting. So basically, the way that I see it is that clear out my PlayStation 4 backlog does a lot of things. Number one, it reduces the amount of psychological weight. Because you guys ever feel weighed down by just how many games you're like, oh my god, I haven't played these games, but I bought them so many years ago. For me, it bothers me because I know games are meant to be played, just like books are meant to be read, and all of these things. So I'm just like, yeah, that's gonna do that. Number two, I get to pick up on some of these classics and some of these gems that I missed out on, and that's so great because it can be such a just such a difference maker and a change of pace for what you're currently playing at the moment, so that's going to be wonderful. The third thing that it does is that it reduces, I guess, the economic calculation that I have to do, because if I can pick up a game a few months later because I've been busy playing other stuff, there's a good chance that game might be on sale, which refuses negates some of the financial burden, so that's wonderful. Number four, it means that you're not currently always kind of like amped up for what's the next game. I think I feel sorry for YouTubers. I really do. That do this kind of like as a profession or as a big part of their living or their income earning, because then they are forced to play according to the whims of the time. Like we all know that a Dragon Age de Velgard review is most likely going to do the best when you have it up close to launch. That's when people are most interested in it. There are some channels that have the luxury, or they've built up a community that doesn't mind circling back months later for like a super in-depth review. Like if you take a look at some of these Starfield reviews, some of these retrospectives and critiques, they are like an hour long, 8 hours long. I've seen 6 hours long, 3 hours long, and people show up for it. People show up in the millions of views for it, and that's power to them. Why? Because that's the kind of audience that they've built where they can be that resilient. But I think for most of the pundits on console gaming, they're basically forced to move on with the time. And when they find themselves in what they consider to be a lull, even though games are still coming out, but what they mean by a lull is there's no game that is grabbing the attention of the masses. So they feel like they are missing. They feel like gaming isn't moving as fast as they want it to. But that's only because you're considering the games that are most attention grabbing for the mass audience, because that's who you're marketing at. You don't want to create a video that only 20 people are going to watch because you decided to, talk about this niche game over there on the side. So gaming is more, at the moment, if you look at it objectively, gaming is more diverse, it is more flavorful, it is more various, contains more variety, it is more abundant, like the quantity of titles being released. It is technically better, like most of these games that we get nowadays, even though a lot of them require patches, on average, I think these games are just technically more superb. Better looking, better control schemes, better control systems, better quality of life things, better accessibility features for especially the people that need that. And it's just a lot more inclusive, and everything like that. So it's a better medium than it's ever been in the past. Go back 10 years and you remove some of those points, and go back 10 years again after that and you remove a lot of those points. Go back 10 years after that and now you find yourself in just a place where it is markedly different from what we have right now. So we have a more vibrant medium and more vibrant hobby to enjoy. But at the same time, it has been commercialized to the point where only ever a few games can grab the attention of the masses, to the point where people can make money off of that content and revenue. Things like the Baldur's Gates, things like the Red Dead Redemption 2, things like The Last of Us, things like perhaps even Starfield and Dragon Age the Velgard, Hellblade 2 maybe. But throughout the year, you maybe have 5 or 6 of these moments, while hundreds and hundreds of other games are being released that will completely satisfy you, but as a YouTuber, they do nothing for you. So I think that's why we see a lot of negativity and pessimism towards these games, because when a game like that comes, one of the 6 or one of the 10, let's say, games in a year that are going to grab the attention of the masses, and it doesn't deliver on a core promise, or it somehow is controversial, or it lets down is a segment of the game community, I think that's why so much hate and negativity is placed on it. That's why so much pessimism comes from it, because people are like, oh, AAA games are all derivative now. Why? Because you played one AAA game that was derivative? Of course, because it was one of the 10 AAA games that you were going to play this year, that you were forced to play this year, instead of something, like a Greece or a Neva. Like Neva just came out, right, by the makers of Greece. And that game, I imagine, is not going to get huge YouTuber clout and support and everything, even though every single one of them will tell you, oh yeah, this is a brilliant, beautiful game. And you know what? Maybe they should be playing that game and enjoying that game and finding solace and refuge and artistry in that game, rather than going to play Dragon Age the Velguard that they already know isn't going to be for them, but it has the attention of the moment. So I feel like that's where the negativity comes from. And as viewers, you have to realize that for you, you're looking for this for entertainment, you're looking for community, you're looking for opinions and debates and diversity and sharing of ideas. But for them, they're looking for revenue. They're looking for clicks. And when something like a Dragon Age the Velguard disappoints them as it disappoints me, I'm like, garbage game. And I move on. With them, it's like, oh my God, gaming is terrible in 2024. Oh wow, what a horrible generation we've had in PlayStation 5. This is disgusting. This is awful. And then when you go back and you're like, listen, objectively, if you were to take a look only at these games that you're taking a look at, the first party, the AAA exclusives, you will find that this generation has had more than the last three generations combined at this point in time. And they refuse to understand it. They're like, no, the last generation was so good. We had Massive, and it's like, well, Mass Effect 2 was a multiplayer title, so it wasn't exclusive. And it's like, no, well, we had this other game. And you're like, well, no, that game actually was also released multi-platform, or that game was a third-party exclusive, or that game didn't really come out the way that you did, or that game was a remaster. No, they don't want to listen, because they have forced themselves to have a diet that is dictated not by what they want, but what they think will make them money. And I'm sorry, that is going to kind of grow some kind of apathy in you. I often think to myself like, oh, what if I made reviews and everything like that? And I don't want to, because if I made a review of a game, first of all, there'd be a lot of work. And if I'm making a review of something like No Kuni remastered in 2024, come on, who's going to watch that? Think about it. Who's going to watch that? Let's say I made a whole review, like I wrote a script, I actually captured footage, I put it there, I cut it up, I edited it, I made sure that my words match with what is on screen at the time. And then I make it for a channel that at the moment, I think we have, like 300 something subscribers. Who's going to watch that? Maybe 15 views. But either way, it will take me something like 15 plus hours, right? This is assuming that, that's just the editing time, not even the gameplay time, which at the moment I play like 70 hours. It's going to take me all that time. And my channel isn't even monetized. So that would just be, let's say, 15 hours down the drain. Not because I enjoyed it, but because I somehow just wanted to grow the channel, or I wanted to be a part of the conversation, or I wanted to eventually monetize. Let's say that I force myself now to get on this whole Dragon Age the Velguard, whether it is the hate train or the defense force or whatever it is. And it's a game that I know I'm not interested in. I hate the art style. I think just from the trailer I could tell that they had fucked it up. So I hate it already. But I will force myself to go and play for 50, 70 hours just to be able to say like, hey guys, I completed it. I did everything there was to do. So my opinion matters. And then, again, on a channel like mine, maybe it might get 3,000 views. It might be like a breakout video for me. But then it will require 10, 20, 30 of those. So I'll have to keep doing this for every single big kind of attention grabbing game, no matter what it is. Like I have to play Black Ops 6 and give that a review, even though I don't like Call of Duty at all. I never liked Call of Duty. I don't like the campaigns. I don't like the multiplayer. But I have to do it for that because there's another attention grabbing game. Then I will have to go and do it for Xbox games like Indiana Jones. Ugh, God. garbage, right? But I have to do it for that. And then I have to do. Can you see what the schedule is? Even if I just started today, Dragon Age, I don't like it, but I have to do it. Call of Duty, I don't like it, but I have to do it. Indiana Jones, I think is garbage, but I have to do it. Like, this is the environment that these YouTubers and reviewers and online pundits are putting themselves in. No wonder they think that gaming's gone garbage. Like, this would be 3 games back to back, big games, right? That would probably, if I had a negative opinion of them after playing them, I'll probably get a lot of backlash, and social pariah status, and people be coming for me like, you're not even a real gamer, ha ha ha, what do you play? You never played this before. You never played this before. Who are you to talk about this? So then there's the whole social toxicity side. But I would hate gaming too. I would hate gaming too. This is why I'm telling you guys, be careful about listening to all of this doom and gloom about gaming and where it is today, because it's not true. Gaming is better this year than it's ever been in any year before that. And it will be better next year than it was this year. And it'll be better the year after than it was next year. Like, take a look at the indie games that we are getting. Indie games are like last generation's AAA games in terms of like production value, music, art style, voice acting. Sometimes they're some of this generation's best games. You take a look at a game like Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is a wonderful game. It's a great game. It's a thorough not JRPG. It's a thorough RPG. I think it's called a CRPG technically. And again, that came from a no-name studio. You take a look at games like Power World, again, they just hit out of nowhere, and suddenly they're competing for some people in their minds with actual Pokemon games. This is what gaming is today. When did we have that last generation? When did we have that generation before that? And these are games that are competent. They're not games where you're thinking to yourself, that's a nice little story. But it's like Flower, technically it's not all there, Or it's like Journey, very technically simple. Not I'm saying that Journey is it's an indie game, but you know what I mean. Like it's a simplified version. It's like a great meal made with fewer ingredients than what the big boys can bring you. So you're like, yeah, but no, indie games nowadays it's like, bro, they've got an entire restaurant kitchen. They've got ingredients for days. They've got flavor. They've got spices. They've got taste, and they get it right. The indie movement alone shows you that gaming is a better medium today than it was yesterday. But then you look at AAA games as well, and people always say, oh, there's no innovation in AAA games. AAA games, they don't innovate anymore. Then you have something like Death Stranding, and people just ignore it. Death Stranding has innovation in it. The strand system, or the chiral network as it is implemented in-game, that is a wonderful thing. That's the thing that more people should create more of this kind of asymmetric online multiplayer kind of games, which blend seamlessly between the single player offline aspect to you can have an online experience in this game that is seamless, and that is, it integrates well in the story, and it's part of everything that you do. So it's like AAA games innovate, AAA games make big changes, and they take big risks. But again, a lot of people don't check for that. Why? Because they're YouTubers that are so jaded and so negative about the gaming as a medium, because to them it's become a painful job, a hobby that no longer gets to just be a hobby. Because in the past, guess what? When you were feeling jaded or jilted or, whatever about games or gaming or your diet of games at the moment, you could just go play an indie game. Just a no-name, fuck around, just have some fun, or discover a new world that you never would have gotten before, because it didn't have to make you money, it didn't have to like pay your bills, it didn't have to always be according to what the masses want to see on your channel. It could just be a game, or you could go backwards and play Morrowind again. You're like, I don't like Starfield, let me go play Skyrim for another 100 hours or 500 hours just because you love that world and you just got your game to spend it. So you could always just take a break from whatever wasn't working. You could discover new games, so you could return to old games that you already loved, or you could just take a break. You could just go read. You could just go watch movies. You could just go watch TV shows and just do that for 3 months and then come back to gaming whenever the hell you felt like it. So you never felt like it was just negativity on top of negativity. And also because you weren't putting yourself or your opinions out there, people weren't just like socially trying to murder you because you have an opinion that differs from their favorite reviewer or their favorite Twitch streamer or their favorite. It's not even their opinion. It's like someone else's opinion that they like really, really like. And they're like, well, my person said this, so you're wrong. Listen, gaming is in a great state. The PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series generation, as far as the games are concerned, have been great generations to partake in. This whole fixation, I think it's that saying, right? If you seek something out, like you will find it. Like seek and you shall find. If you seek to be unhappy with gaming, you will find plenty of reasons. The YouTube world alone will give you plenty of reasons to be unhappy. Let's not even talk about Twitter. Oh my god, if you want to be unhappy, get on Twitter. Oh my god, Twitter will serve you unhappiness like by the boatload. Twitter will give you unhappiness for free. Like you just go. It doesn't even matter what the topic is, but especially for gaming, oh my god, it's crazy. It's crazy. You will be unhappy. Like, how is it that you want a PlayStation 5 Pro and someone is recommending to you a PC? Like, what does that have to do with what I want? This would be like if you're like, okay, I want a minivan and someone's recommending to you a Ferrari. It has nothing to do with what you want. It doesn't meet your requirements whatsoever. Just because they are both things that can, that technically automotive transport, doesn't mean that it's an answer to what you wanted originally. So Twitter will make you miserable, like for free. And that's the thing. It's like people for somehow, I feel like, especially PlayStation gamers, I feel like PlayStation gamers are looking for reasons to be unhappy. They are actively seeking them out. And they refuse to understand that it is a deranged state of mind that they have placed themselves in, where they are so invested in their own unhappiness. And that's the more I say, the more true it just seems to me. Like, these people really want to be unhappy. They want to be unhappy about this generation. They want to feel lied to. You think about it and you're like, oh my god, Sony lied to us, Sony did this, Sony. I'm like, when did they? Like, then they will be like, oh my god, we believe in generations. It's like, yeah, if you listen to the full quote, that was taken out of context. Now, I don't know the full quote by heart, so you have to go and take a look at it. But you weren't lied to. And they did support the PlayStation 5 generation with exclusive games. But did you really think that games that were developed for the PlayStation 4 generation, that were developed like in 2018 when they started development, like Horizon Forbidden West, did you really think that they would have developed them all the way back then for the PlayStation 5 alone? Like, come on. Come on, use your brain. Like, that's just you looking to be unhappy. That's just you being unhappy. You just want it. Like, that's just, at the end of the day, it's like the partner who is in too stable a relationship. She is feeling like, wow, my relationship is so steadfast. Just consistently good. Not too many highs, not too many peaks, right? Not too many valleys. Just, it's like a sine wave, but most of it is stable. Then a little bit of variation up and down, and then it just goes steady again. And she's like, nah, he must be cheating on me. This is what it is. This is too stable. There's not enough passion. There's not enough fights, and then she goes out looking for things to validate her already suspicious, but also pretty convinced that there is something wrong. And in looking for those problems, she comes to believe in them, and then that comes to create the problem within herself and eventually within the relationship, and then eventually all of it breaks down. That is exactly what this is. You guys are looking to be lied to. You're looking to be taken advantage of. You are looking to be made a victim. So you're looking for things to victimize you. Like, because that's how people are acting about this whole PlayStation 5 Pro price. Mate, if you don't want to pay $700, don't pay it. It's literally like no one is telling you that you have to buy. People are like, oh no, Sony's forcing them to pay $700. How are they forcing you, bro? How are you being forced? Who is holding the gun? Who's blackmailing you to go and get this product that you don't want? Just don't get it. It's that simple. Like, when the iPhone comes out and it has the iPhone, the Pro, and the Pro Max, no one says that Apple is forcing the customers to get the Pro Max. Yes, they are charging them an exorbitant amount of money, but those customers that get the Pro Max, they weren't forced by Apple. They just decided to pay that price. And you can have any opinion that you want about the price itself. You can say it's overpriced. You can say that it's not good value for money. You can say it's unnecessary. You can say that most people aren't even going to use the performance. All of these things can even be objectively true. But at the end of the day, Apple didn't force people to go and get that version. They gave them other options, and they were not forced into any of those options. But people in gaming want to be victimized. They want to feel hurt or betrayed, or I don't even know. But they want this negativity. They actively seek it out, and that's why they are so jaded about this generation. They are so done, with all of these gaming companies, and gaming is the worst thing. And I'm just like, wait, if you truly believe that, there were 4,000 games last generation alone on the PlayStation 4. Not to count PC, not to count the Switch, not to count what Xbox had to offer. There were 4,000 games alone. Let's say that you were super proactive and you beat 30 games every year. Okay? Let's even say 50 games every year. Like, you were really in on it. Multiply that by 10. That's only 500 games. I am sure there's at least 100 or 200 games that you could be playing and beating and loving just there, available to you. Not to count all of the other games that have come out this generation that were not the big attention grabbing headlines that, again, you could be playing and beating and loving. This is a media. This would be like a person being like, oh, books are so desolate now. It's like, what do you mean? There are books released all the time. Are you really telling me that writing as a medium is somehow letting you down? Like, there's books from hundreds of years ago. You can read those. There's books that are coming out today, that came out this second. You can read those. And there's going to be fantastic titles all over the place in every genre for everybody to find something that they love. And that's where gaming is building up to. There will be a point where instead of just 10 attention grabbing headlines, it's going to be like a tiered system where there's like games like GTA 6 that are just like the big major things that everyone's going to have opinions about. Everyone's going to revolve around for like a week or two, and then people will just kind of be like, yeah, this is my game, everything like that. Great. The Fortnites, the Apex Legends, all of those, boom, they're going to happen. But there's also going to be games that kind of just fall a little bit on the rung below that. There might be the Ghost of Yote or the PlayStation exclusives or the Xbox exclusives, and they're going to be a thing. Then there's going to be obviously the annual sports games and the multiplayer games and live service crap, and they're going to fall there. But I think that there's also going to be a lot of diverse games, and we already see it. You see games like Word 96. I recently picked it up. I think it's going to be a great title. We'll see. You will see games like Life is Strange. You will see games. Like, this thing is already happening, where these other games exist. You can just go and play them, but you refuse to because you either are a YouTuber yourself that needs to be fed on this diet, or you're a person that listens exclusively to these YouTubers, so you pretty much adopt a very similar diet. Okay, that was a whole rant I didn't even plan on going on, but hey, there we go. Okay. At the end of the day, I am very happy that the PlayStation 5 Pro has launched. I think it pushes the medium forward. I think that it is innovation and tech that we will be able to see in future generations. I think that it is a great thing that it has happened so that developers can start to implement the PlayStation Super Spectral PSSR, PISA, whatever. And we can already see that different developers seem to have accomplished different levels of performance or return on investment for this same version of PlayStation, Super Spectral Resolution or whatever it's called. So, as developers become more familiar with it, as the technology matures, as Sony calibrates the system and, helps developers and they get feedback and everything like that, you're only going to see a better product for your money, even if you stay on the base PlayStation 5. And the reason that I say that is that all of these learnings will eventually mature and be included in the PlayStation 6, where I think you will be interested in having that. Also, as developers just get familiar with these tools, perhaps they could also improve in other people's AI upscalers like DLSS. Maybe a developer that works on PSSR is our way. Some of this knowledge is transferable over to DLSS. I can create a better product over there for the PC brethren. Perhaps the DLSS solution or a version of it will also be implemented in the next Switch. So now that learning can now feed that particular pipeline. Perhaps that will also feed into AMD's FSR, which is a kind of like open platform of the similar kind of thing, and perhaps all of that can get better. Now, I'm not saying that PlayStation somehow generated this movement, because at the moment there's a good chance that it's actually DLSS that was the most popular, and that those developers are feeding into PSSR those lessons that they learned over when they were working on NVIDIA's solution. But what I'm saying is that it is now a part of the framework. It's now a contributor. So if you have a moment in gaming where you have someone like NVIDIA with their solution, you've got PlayStation with theirs, you perhaps have the Switch with their version, whether that is NVIDIA's or a variant of that. You now have three pillars, that are very popular, that have the financial and the kind of fan base incentive to invest in these technologies and help us to get a better product. So again, even if you are on a PlayStation 5 base, but perhaps you have a PC, or perhaps you get a PC in the future, this PlayStation 5 Pro is good for you. It is helping the people behind the scenes, the engineers and the technical teams and the artists and everything, do a better job providing you with a better product at the end of the day. So you should be fully happy that it at least exists, even if you yourself choose not to partake. If you choose to partake, you get to see those benefits more directly in the titles that you will be playing. But hey, it's great for everyone. For the same reason, I hope that Xbox, not necessarily that they have to do a mid-gen refresh, but I really do hope that the next generation console is a powerful console. It's not about stopping Sony from doing what Sony will do. It's not about standing in competition with Sony. I think, in fact, that Xbox's biggest mistake was placing themselves in competition with Sony. Put yourself in the same space as Sony, but do what you do. Do what you are doing. Focus on what you are trying to accomplish. You take a look at the PlayStation VR 2. Failure though it may be, flop though it may seem, it is Sony doing what it does. You take a look at the Portal. Again, failure though it may be, flop though it may seem, whatever it is that you think about it, whether you think it is a complete paperweight or you think like me that it's actually quite a brilliant product, it doesn't matter how you feel about it. The point that I'm trying to make is, it is Sony doing what it does. It's only there's no equivalency on Xbox for a PlayStation Portal. They didn't get an inspiration from the Portal and was like, this is why we're gonna do this to counteract what Xbox is doing. No. They did it because that's what they were doing. They are not in competition with Xbox. Yes, they are competitors in the space and they want to grab as much market share from it, but they're not in competition with Xbox. Their decisions do not start from where is Xbox and how can we counteract what they are doing. No. If that had been the case, PlayStation games, day and date, would have been a common refrain that you would have heard by now, because that would have been a complete, one-to-one for what Xbox decided to do. Xbox has spent too much time being in competition with Sony and letting that misguided sense of competition guide whatever it is that they are doing. When they found themselves in a moment where they had more teraflops than Sony, and from that point on, they wouldn't shut up about it. They just made it seem like these teraflop numbers were like the end-all be-all, and they really placed all of the marketing around it and about the world's most powerful console, which is a lie still perpetuated to this day. But it's like, look at the reverse. Look at what Sony did. Sony now has technically a console with more T-flops, whatever those are, than Xbox. You haven't seen them mention it once because they are not in competition with. They don't respond to what Xbox does. They simply do what they do, and I think that Xbox needs to wake up and it needs to realize that it can't just try to make, or position every single one of the efforts in contrast to what Sony has done. This whole thing about, oh, we're gonna make a handheld now, and I'm like, are you making a handheld because that's what you truly believe in? Because that's where you truly want gaming to go? Or at least you truly want it to be an option for your gamers, the way that Sony wants VR to be an option for their gamers? Or is it because the Portal came out, was kind of successful, but then you were like, and everyone else was like, wouldn't this be great if it was native? And you're like, I guess we'll do that. Be careful with that. Because if you're not truly invested in that, you might place yourself in a position where you create a native handheld with no native games, which is the trap that people like myself and Portorock, for example, are very glad that Sony avoided. The notion of having to make a native game for a completely different platform. So Xbox, be careful. Are you making your Xbox Portal, we just call it for now, or your Xbox handheld more generically, are you making that because you truly believe that you want to be a part of the handheld gaming movement and that's where you want to take your brand and this is things that you're doing for yourself? Or are you saying that because the PlayStation Portal was great but it left one option unticked and you're like, oh, our version is going to tick that? Because Microsoft has a history of doing this. The Zune was pretty much a response to the iPod, and it's like, again, are you creative because you believe in the Zune? Because clearly you didn't, right? Or are you doing it because you believe in it? Because imagine if Microsoft had actually believed in the Zune. Everyone who talks about having the Zune is like, yeah, this was a much better product than the iPod at the time. But Microsoft didn't believe in it. They just wanted something opposite Apple. And so the moment that it didn't work, they were like, screw it. I didn't have a Zune. But I had the Zune software on my desktop, and this was a time when I was using primarily Windows Media Player and some third-party apps for music, right? For media playback. And when I say that the Zune interface was so slick, was so beautiful, was so intuitive, was so joyful to use, oh man, I love using the Zune software. Windows Media Player had nothing on it. It was antiquated and archaic by comparison. It had more features, that's for sure. And I always thought to myself, like, wait, you have created a better, more beautiful graphical interface here. Why don't you just discontinue Windows Media Player? Make Zune your standard and then just bring in some of those legacy features, some of those nerdy features that Windows Media Player has into Zune. So you just marry the two. You have the face of Zune, but the substance of Windows Media Player, or at least the features of that. But Microsoft didn't believe in the Zune. In fact, they don't even believe in Windows Media Player. You take a look at it now, I don't even know if new versions of Windows come with Windows Media Player built in. Nowadays, first of all, I just use Spotify because obviously. But then secondly, why did they have Groove Music? Groove Music was a shitty version of both. Groove Music was awful. You should have taken a Zune interface, but they created this Groove Music, then they gave up on it again. And again, you take a look at Windows Media Player is kind of the OG. I can't really think about anything that it was in competition to. But Zune was in competition with iTunes. But once you got there, you didn't believe enough to make it great, to make it the default, to make it the thing where people are like, yeah, I'm gonna open Zune to play this MP3 or whatever. But then Spotify and everything came around and you had Groove Music, no longer Zune. Why? Why is it no longer Zune? Because you never believed in Zune. So then you abandon that, you create Groove Music, and then that was garbage anyway, right? And it's just like, there we go. You create products in response to your competitor, not because you believe in those products, but because you somehow want overnight success, even though your competitor has just been toiling away at it. Like, you take a look at Spotify, it's a much better app than it was even 5 years ago, even 3 years ago. but they've never changed Spotify. They never go like, okay, well, it's not Spotify anymore. It is Moon Music. Okay, cool. What the fuck's Moon Music? Like, we don't know this thing. No, they just steadily, because they have to believe the entire platform is Spotify, so they have to believe in their product. But the point is, they do, so they make it better incrementally over time. And if there was some kind of like thing that was kind of in the background, eventually they integrate it into the app. I was currently using recently using my Spotify app, and two features stood out to me. Number one, you can switch the video from the app now, which obviously is a counter to YouTube Music, but it's a seamless integration. Okay, cool, very fine. That's clearly something that must have been in the labs for like 1 or 2 years. Now they integrate it, make it better. Okay, cool. The second thing is that you can now swipe to the right in order to quickly add a product to be next in queue. Like if you have a music and you're like, oh my god, it's on shuffle, but I want to listen to this song next. Before it was awkward. Now you can just quickly swipe to the right and it will add it to queue. I don't know how long that feature has been up, but I recently discovered it, and it's like, oh, that makes so much sense. There we go. They just made it a little bit better again. And I'm sure they might have stolen that from an Apple Music or YouTube Music or some other one of the competitors. But again, it makes sense. It's better. They believe in the products. Microsoft doesn't. Microsoft needs to do things that Microsoft wants to do. You could say that Game Pass has been the thing that they have most believed in fact, putting most of their weight in so far. But Game Pass itself was a response to a market reality, which is their games weren't selling. So it's like, yes, you've put a lot of weight behind this particular measure, but this measure was again in response to your competitor, not necessarily because you believed it was the best thing for gaming, or at least for your kind of game, but because you were like, we need to differentiate ourselves from Sony, so let's create something like Game Pass, but then let's make it day and date. Because we all know that Sony had PlayStation Now at the time, and Game Pass with that day and date is basically what PlayStation Now was. And they were like, well, what's one more thing on top of that? They were like, what is Sony doing, and how can we add one gimmick on top of it? And that was it. And I feel like, again, the Zune portable player was like, what is the iPod doing? How can we add one gimmick on top of that? And then that was it. With Android and iOS, they were like, well, what are they doing? Okay, well, how can we add one gimmick on top of that? And they will, boom, Windows Phone. Again, all of these things, which again, they put a lot of financial weight behind Windows Phone. They bought Nokia, I think, for like $4 billion or something like that, only to shut them down after like a year or so. Because again, Microsoft does this thing where they create products in response to the competitor. They throw a lot of their financial weight and their organizational weight behind it, but it was never a measure that they truly believed in themselves. And so then they shut it down, and then there you go. You're losing all of those miles that you walked. None of it counts for nothing. So, anyways, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I am very happy with the state of gaming. I think that if people want to be happy about gaming, gaming has provided them more in this year alone than in many of the past years, to be able to enjoy gaming from every variety of games. From games, that are like the Plucky Squire, which is basically a physical storybook, right? To games that are just bigger AAA, all of these kind of like big things, big technical things that are going behind it, like a Black Myth Wukong, like a Call of Duty Black Ops 6, like a what's another big AAA game, like a Stellar Blade that came out, like a Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth that came out. You just have a whole lot to enjoy, and it's at the point where if you are not enjoying it, it's a choice. For whatever the reason is, it's something that you have chosen to do, and it's a choice that you have decided to make, because there's no excuse for you not to enjoy gaming. So that's it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I'm going to try to do the same. I'll talk to you guys next time.